friend in this world. I brought the medicine that will wipe out the disease of illusion from which you are suffering. Take this Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, I fall at the Lord's feet, having taken this Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole, Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago, Gaura Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisachira Kole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisachira Kole Majiva Bolia Ese Samsara bitole bachi bo pauliya ese samsara bitole buliya ro ile tumi avichara more buliya ro Ile tumi avichara bore tomare loite ami oinu avatara tomara loite ami oinu avatara Ami bina banduara ke acheto mara Ami bina banduara ke acheto mara Enechi oshodi maya Tachi baro lagi chi oshodi maya Nachi baro lagi Hari nama maha mantra lao to me magi Hari nama mantra loud to me magi Baka TV Noda Prabhu Charane Bo Diya Prati Vinoda Prabhu Charane Bo Diya Say Hare Nama mantra loilo magiya say Hare Nama mantra loilo magiya Jago Jago Gaura Chandra Bole Jago Lila Jago Gaura Chandra Bole Kota Nidra Jayo Maya Pisatira Kore Kota Nija Jayo Maya Pisatira Kore Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Nithai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaura Hari Bol Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nithai Chandra Nithai Chandra my poor Chandra Chandra Nithai Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya 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 Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nevisesha Sunyavadi Astachadesha Tarine. Yeah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're trying to continue with our readings from various devotees on their memories of their personal moments with Srila Prabhupada. And Mother Mahamaya Devi Dasi has written this nice book, and she has revealed her association with Srila Prabhupada, which we would not have gotten otherwise. So we're hoping all devotees, Prabhupada's followers and disciples, will also collect their memories of their activities or their services, their service to Srila Prabhupada, including our humble self, so that other devotees can take advantage. Srila Prabhupada is coming. The Madhūban farm and marriage. So Mataji is in New Vrindavan, and the big moment is coming. She mentions, reread from last week. Once the roads thawed enough in early 1973 to accommodate a four-wheel drive vehicle. So this is New Vrindavan in 1970, late 1972 and 73. So it was very rustic, and it was at times impassable. So the different farms, there was the Vrindavan farm, there was Madhūban farm, and I think at that time they had the Brahmachari farm. And Prabhupada had his own place coming up at that time. So, in my opinion, Madhūban was the most austere farm. Most of the devotees who lived there were grihasta couples with kids. So what does that mean? Kids means if the kids house, that people won't be disturbed. And especially no celibates or single persons who would complain about, shut their kids up, something like that. The old farmhouse always looked dirty, even though we scrubbed everywhere, even the walls. The temple room, formerly Srila Prabhupada's bedroom, during the Bhagavad Dharma discourses, was so cold that we wore socks on the altar. Ladini Prabhu also moved to Madhūban. So we were mentioning Ladini Dasi. She was murdered in Africa, in either Liberia or Monrovia or somewhere, by some insane warlord who will go to hell for many, many lifetimes for that. Ladini Prabhu also moved to Madhuban, worshipping her own Jagannath deities on the altar. She spent her days in the kitchen cooking on wood stoves without the luxury of running water. Water was hauled from a deep well some distance away. When she finished cooking, both the kitchen devotion, but it was austere fare, no fresh fruit or vegetables. We practically lived for the spectacular Sunday feasts at Bahulaban. We bathed and washed clothes with water from a cistern well that collected rainwater. Because the roof was full of coal dust from the furnace, even our clean clothes looked gray. You could easily spot Madhuban devotees at the feasts. We looked gray too. And this is some nice service here. Kunti Dasi, the single mother of little Kam Dasi, later Karnamrita. Karnamrita is a famous singer. Yeah, so she grew up in New Vrindavan in the austere days, and her mother volunteered to wash everyone's clothes in an ancient washing machine in the basement. Hauling bucket after bucket of water from the cistern well to the washer was unbelievably difficult, but she did the service with a smile. A great kirtan singer. She's still impressing devotees all over the world. The men dragged dead trees out of the forest during the summers and sawed them into sections, and the ladies helped split logs for the kitchen stoves. Even in extremely cold weather, I'd throw off my outer clothing while swinging the axe. The exertion worked up a sweat. After 45 minutes, I would be exhausted and careless and get smacked by flying wood fragments, indicating it was time to stop. So you can hurt yourself. You can cut yourself or lose a limb even. Of course, obviously Lord Jagannath was protecting. I wasn't very tolerant of the kids in Madhuban and wanted to move to another farm. At the Sunday feast, I told Kuladri Prabhu, Kirtanananda Swami's right-hand man, quote, I want to move back to the Vrindavan farm. I heard the brahmacharis just moved up there. Kuladri said, actually, we want you to get married. To whom? That doesn't matter. You talk to the other ladies. Themselves, Grihastas encouraged me to get married, even though we couldn't figure out to whom. Was it to the cowherd at Bahulaban? I did not want to, but I agreed, not wanting to disobey the authorities. I felt upset when I learned that Kirtananda Swami wanted me to marry Tribhanga Das. a spiritual sky salesman working Indiana, lured to New Vrindavan by promises of a wife, house, Mahaprasadam, and whatever he wanted. So, we didn't even get the Mahaprasadam. They chose me for two reasons. I was the only one shorter than him. He was very short and close to his age. I was 26, he was 29. Although especially not wanting to marry him, I could see no way out. The next Sunday, boy, they worked fast there. The next Sunday, we were married at a New Vrindavan flower ceremony. Quote, flower ceremony, unquote, in which we exchanged flowers on the temple porch at Bahulaban. Everyone cheered and considered us married. The marriage, I was told, you'll qualify for a real wedding and a fire sacrifice. So here, just see. They didn't do fire sacrifices right. They had the flower ceremony in which you were kind of married, but it had to last a year before you got the real wedding and a fire sacrifice. So we've heard that before. Even Prabhupada was, we read in the other book, Prabhupada was mentioning. I didn't have a modicum of hope for a bright future. He had different expectations than me and ridiculed me for being staunch about the regulative principle not to have illicit sex. It was embarrassing to be married to this man. My unforgiving feelings are most accurately described by a crude expression I learned while growing up. I hated his guts. Hare Krishna. Ooh, honeymoon. Wow. Oh, she was traveling with him. Once married, I survived 6 weeks on the road with Tribanga, selling spiritual sky incense and eating only his homemade version of trail mix. Trail mix meaning the granola stuff. His recipe called for a couple of tins of mixed nuts and salted peanuts, a package of dates, and a bag of shredded sweetened coconut, all mixed together in a paper bag. Sounds delicious. During our travels, Tribanga got a huge order for incense in Louisville, Kentucky. So we returned to New Vrindavan to fill the order. There we saw Dharmatma Das, a Sankirtan leader for Vancouver, who was looking for a place to repair an old roadshow bus he'd just bought. Tribanga invited Dharmatma Prabhu and his group to come with us to Louisville, because there he knew a favorable couple whose house we could stay in. Dharmatma drove his bus to Louisville and parked on the street in the couple's neighborhood. We filled our order and left town, but he and the other devotees with him stayed 3 weeks longer. One brahmachari befriended a neighborhood girl who showed up at the bus with packed bags just as the bus was leaving for a festival at New Vrindavan. Dharmatma refused to bring her along because she was underage and her father was the leader of a motorcycle gang. Good choice. When the devotees left, she ran away from home. Her father thought she was also going to New Vrindavan, and he drove there to look for her during the weekend festival. The festival attracted more than 200 devotees, and Vishnujan Swami led the most beautiful kirtans during the festivities. Not only was an Ananta Sesh deity buried under the cornerstone of a future temple, but also two sets of small brass Radha Krishna deities were installed, one set for the Vrindavan farm and the other for Madhuban. It was an open house festival, and the girl's father showed up in his old convertible, one of those really huge ones. He came with another man and the local sheriff. Devotees escorted them around to convince them his daughter wasn't there. The father returned a second time with his friend and two ladies to see more and ask more questions. However, the matter wasn't settled that weekend. Sounds ominous. But the Bahulaban farm. After my 6 weeks on the road with him, Tribanga traveled and sold incense alone, returning occasionally while I lived at the Bahulaban farm, following a tight schedule. I went on the altar mornings and evenings, helped to roll hundreds of chapatis for lunch, and baked the 4 p.m. offering. I came to Bahulaban too late to get Mother Shilavati's training. She had moved to New York. But Kutila Dasi, Kuladri's wife, was an excellent head pujari and a stickler for kitchen cleanliness. I loved the pujari service. Following a rotating schedule in the morning, I dressed Radharani once a week, Vrindavan Chandra once a week, and either tiny Radha Krishna or Lord Jagannath the other days. So, Shishi Radha Vrindavan Chandra. Very beautiful, beautiful deities. However, every evening for 9 months, I dressed the same deity, Srimati Radharani. I don't know how that's supposed to read. However, every evening for 9 months, I dressed the same deity, Srimati Radharani. I took off her day clothes and jewelry and put on her nighttime clothes. I became quick and adept because we had little time. One night, in the usual rush to finish on time, I looked at Radharani's face and froze, thinking, this is Radharani. But I had to set aside that thought to continue my service. I knew a passage from Nectar of Devotion about Dwarukas feeling ecstasy while fanning Krishna, but setting aside his feeling to continue his service. I wasn't on Dwaruka's platform of devotional love, but I felt something similar that day by recognizing Radharani and then continuing to serve her under time pressure. Later, I heard a class that helped me better understand the deities and their feelings and interactions with the pujaris. When Srila Prabhupada himself installed deities for the first time in ISKCON, small brass Radha Krishna deities in Los Angeles on July 16th, 1969, at the end of his class, he said, "If you think it is a brass-made doll, I mean to say idol, ye yata mam prapadyante, tam stataiva bhajami aham, if you think this is a brass-made idol, then it will remain a brass-made idol to you forever. But if you elevate yourself to a higher platform of Krishna consciousness, then Krishna, this Krishna, will talk with you. This Krishna will talk with you." There is a Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj. He was talking with his deity. And the Madan Mohan deity, he was talking with Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami at that time had no temple. He was hanging his deity on the tree. So Madan Mohan was talking with him, quote, "Sanatan, you're bringing all these dry chapatis, and it is stale, and you don't give me even a little salt. How can I eat?" Sanatana Goswami said, quote, "Sir, where shall I go? Whatever I get, I offer to you. You kindly accept. I cannot move. I am an old man." You see, so Krishna had to eat that. Prabhupada chuckles. Because the bhakta is offering. He cannot refuse. Ye yatamam papajanti. Real thing is bhakti. What you can offer to Krishna. Everything belongs to Krishna. What have you got? What is your value? And what is the value of your things? It is nothing. So we've heard this, where Prabhupada actually begins to cry. And what is the value of your things? It is nothing. Therefore, real thing is bhaktya. Real thing is your feeling. Krishna, kindly take it. I have no qualification. I am most rotten, fallen, but Prabhupada begins to cry. I brought this thing for you. Please take it. Unquote. This will be accepted. Don't be puffed up. Always be careful. You are dealing with Krishna. That is my request. Thank you very much. Thugs attack Bahulaban. On June 1973, during the week following the Open House Festival, an armed motorcycle gang attacked the temple. It was a local gang hired by the distraught Louisville father who was with them, still looking for his runaway daughter. Wow. Surrounding the temple in the early morning, as the Srimad Bhagavatam class was being held, they fired shotguns through open windows and doors, hitting 2 men to gain control. I was on the altar bathing the deities. Kutila Prabhu and I managed to place the small deities, Jagannath and Radha and Krishna, out of sight behind the altar before we were ordered into the temple room. There I saw Bidhan Chandra and Krishna Katha Prabhu lying bleeding on the floor. We chanted the Nrsimhadev prayers for the Lord's protection, but a gang member demanded, "Stop your chanting," and shot another bullet through the ceiling. "If you don't give us the girl, we're going to kill all of you," one of the villains threatened. Terrified, I truly thought we were all going to die because the girl wasn't there and had never visited New Vrindavan. The previous weekends, when her father had looked for her at our festival, he'd seen a cornerstone laying ceremony at which a deity of Ananta Shesh was buried in a deep pit. He thought we had sacrificed the girl and was convinced the pit was the girl's grave. Wow. The father demanded, "Where is your leader?" Kirtanananda Swami identified himself. "Who is the leader down in Louisville?" "I was," Dharmatma Prabhu admitted. "We're taking you both to dig your own graves, where you cut up and buried my daughter. I've heard about cults like yours." Oh, great stuff. Hare Krishna. We helplessly watched Kirtanananda Swami and Dharmatma being taken away. Miraculously, the girl's father did not recognize the brahmachari who befriended his daughter, though he was right there in the corner of the temple room, fearing for his life. We softly chanted japa, praying fervently to Lord Krishna. "What's behind the curtain?" one of the thugs asked. Tearing down the deity curtain, he saw the marble forms of Radha Vrindavan Chandra, still not dressed because their bath was interrupted. This monster forced one of our men to push over Srimati Radharani. Then he himself pushed over Lord Vrindavan Chandra. The deity broke slightly as he hit the lower shelf of the marble altar, which cracked and broke beneath him. Wow. Standing on the altar, this envious demon declared, just like Hiranyakashipu, "Now I am God, worship me." Wow, it really fit the bill. Hare Krishna. The loud sounds of the two deities hitting the marble floor frightened the gang members walking up the hill. While the first crash was startling, the second sounded like a gunshot, and they thought the devotees had gained control of the situation. They began to run away, yelling at those inside to join them. Then the ordeal suddenly and unexpectedly ended. The two wounded devotees were taken to the hospital, and Radha Vrindavan Chandra were carried to Kirtanananda Swami's house. Kutila and I retrieved the small deities. She had hid Radha Krishna somewhere safe, while I and others carried the Jagannath deities to Talavan, a more secluded farm. We prepared for the gang's return because one thug had threatened, "We'll be back tonight to burn the place down." The police refused to protect us, so by nightfall the devotees had armed themselves. Several devotees stayed up all night to guard the farm, hidden from sight with all the lights out. But by Krishna's mercy, neither the father nor the gang ever returned. Hearing about these unfortunate events, Srila Prabhupada wrote to Kirtanananda Swami on June 14th, 1973, quote, "I am in due receipt of your letter dated June 6, 1973, and have noted the contents with great care and concern. The deities must be immediately repaired and worshipped. Now we must take precaution, as you have suggested. You may get some guns, and some of the boys may be trained as kshatriyas. Such gunshots could have taken place long ago, since we are challenging everybody. So we must be prepared to fight. We cannot stop this movement. It is actually a fight against Maya. So Maya may also sometimes cause casualties in our camp. So we must only thank Krishna and seriously dedicate everything for him. So you are Kirtanananda Maharaj. Take pleasure in performing kirtan. That is our real weapon against Maya. So we were discussing that we also, and I'm still trying to get the dates, the exact date when the house in which we were staying in Knoxville, Tennessee was firebombed. And one nice devotee, Brajajana Prabhu, died of third-degree burns a week later. So devotees had thought that we were directly attacked for being devotees, and it wasn't understood till later that there were these. It was a battle between these pimps who were fighting over the women that they were selling. So I was requested by Rupanuga afterwards to buy a weapon, a 16-gauge riot shotgun, a short barrel. So when it shoots, it goes everywhere. And we had acquired a 38 caliber pistol as well. So devotees all over the country, all over the world, actually started arming themselves in preparation for something similar to happen. Hare Krishna. Chapter 5, New Vrindavan Days. On June 22nd, Srila Prabhupada wrote again, quote, after the shooting affair, what precaution have you taken? Bhardaraj is here, and he gave report that the devotees were very frightened. I further understand that the attack was for the second time. Here in Mayapur, there are reports of dacoits at least once or twice in a month surrounding our place. So they have now taken 2 guns under regular license with the government. So when New Vrindavan has been attacked twice, thrice, why are you not keeping guns? We are not advocates of non-violence. When there is aggression, we must kill them. So I think you shall immediately arrange for guns, and at least 10, 12 men should be trained up so when there is again attack, you can properly reply the aggressor. In the meantime, I shall be glad to hear from you what defense measures you have taken to protect the life and property of New Vrindavan. This is very important, and you must take all steps. Actually, the government should have arrested all the gang and punished them properly for their atrocious behavior on unarmed people. Is there an attempt to have the government punish the gang who are well known to your country? We just take measure against occasional attacks by criminals. Unquote. To add insult to injury, these gang members were tried in the local court, but not convicted, despite the testimony of many devotees. Justice, it seems, would be attained only on a higher plane, not in the material world. So we see Srila Prabhupada was concerned with this, even though he knew devotees ultimately depend on Krishna, and performing kirtan, you are Kirtanananda, take pleasure in performing kirtan. That is our real weapon against Maya. But Prabhupada wrote again, insisting that they make some arrangements for protecting the devotees and Krishna. So in Mayapur also but after we had our firebombing in Knoxville, we left and moved out into the country. Some favorable people allowed us to stay there. And we were up all night taking shifts on guard duty, 2 or 3 hours each. And then when I moved to Mayapur in the spring of and summer of 1975, we also stood guard, watching guard, and there was this gigantic double-barreled shotgun. It seemed like it was almost as long as the carpet. It was big. And the devotee's name was Sadhanandana. He was the secretary, and he slept in the office with the gun. And everybody for miles around, they knew about the gun. They knew about the gun. And Pankajangari Prabhu, he used it and blew a few people away on that time when they did attack the devotees. So Prabhupada says, we are not, what is it? We are not pacifists. We are not advocates of nonviolence. When there is aggression, we must kill them. Anyway. Leaving New Vrindavan. I left New Vrindavan on January 3rd, 1974, 3 years to the day since I joined ISKCON. After 8 months of hell, married to Tribhanga, I decided to leave him and chose to go to Los Angeles because Srila Prabhupada was there, and because the Los Angeles temple, being opulent and cosmopolitan, was the antithesis of New Vrindavan. When Tribhanga learned I was going, he said, "Don't leave me here. I also want to go to Los Angeles." I agreed to travel with him, thinking I could use his protection. It was better than traveling alone, and it worked out. We hitchhiked to Moundsville, and with 2 rides from there, we reached Indianapolis, Tribhanga's previous sales territory. We stayed overnight with a couple he had cultivated in Krishna consciousness. I cooked a feast. We loaned them devotional clothes, and we had a kirtan and arti. The next morning, they dropped us off on the highway, where we again hitchhiked. Our first ride was going to Los Angeles. Wow, good luck. After riding 24 hours a day for 2.5 days, we were dropped at the door of the Los Angeles temple. So, back in the 60s, that was the way people got around. Just stick your finger out, and maybe you had a cardboard, and you could write the letters L.A. or Denver or whatever, Buffalo or NYC, and people would pick you up. In the beginning, it was very nice. After a while, it became a little dangerous, and then it became suicidal. Back to brahmacharini life. Srila Prabhupada had been in Los Angeles for 5 weeks, but he was leaving in a week. For his Srimad Bhagavatam classes, many devotees packed into the temple room, and after classes, the children walked to the Vyasa-san to receive cookies from Srila Prabhupada's hand. There was some ceremony, I can't recall, but Prajumna Prabhu, who traveled with Srila Prabhupada as his Sanskrit editor, went around to the ladies saying, Srila Prabhupada wants you to make the ululating sound the ladies make in India. Okay. We didn't know how to do it, however. We wanted to please Srila Prabhupada, so we tried. Without an example to follow, it sounded like an American Indian war cry. Or a sick cow. Sick cow bellowing. It sounded like an American Indian war cry or a sick cow bellowing. Sorry. 3 weeks after Srila Prabhupada departed, my flower ceremony husband left the movement, or blooped, or as Srila Prabhupada would say. Bloop was the sound of the soul falling back into the material pool. I was glad to be a brahmacharini again. I stayed in Los Angeles several months doing deity worship. Mostly I had hand-beaded outfits for Sri Sri Rukmini Dwarkadish, which Tungabhadra Dasi had designed and sewed. I also made garlands and cooked and dressed the big Lord Jagannath deities at night. I worked directly under Manjawali Dasi, the head pujari. So Manjawali Dasi was and became the husband, the wife of Jaitirtha. And when Jaitirtha took over in the UK, then she came along with their son. Very nice devotee, still nice devotee. While I lived in Vrindavan, cut off for a year and a half from the rest of ISKCON, Sankirtan had changed. In the earlier days, everyone went on Harinam Sankirtan daily. Now, only small Harinam groups went out daily from most temples, and large groups went out only on weekend nights. In Los Angeles, to the corner of Hollywood and Vine, the distribution of big books had become more prominent. Srila Prabhupada was repeatedly emphasizing that book distribution pleased him. Thus, many devotees dedicated themselves entirely to this important service. The experienced distributors taught others their techniques. In Los Angeles, I saw how fired up Rameshwar and Tripurari Prabhus were about the Los Angeles temple winning the transcendental competition to distribute more books than other temples. Their enthusiasm was reflected in the Sankirtan devotees. I started feeling the pressure. Quote, go out on Sankirtan and don't be in Maya. It became intense. The whole Sankirtan party, men and women, took their morning prasadam in the ladies' prasadam room with us. If they had the same prasadam as us, there would have been no problem. but they got lots of Mahaprasadam milk sweets and fruit and yogurt, whereas we got little or no Mahaprasadam and were served hot milk and cooked cereal, even though it was spring. I got the feeling the Sankirtan devotees were purposely trying to make us envious so that we would join them. However, taking care of the deities and cooking were also vitally important. I finally heard Rameshwar Prabhu admit this, comparing Sankirtan to a bucket brigade. Water buckets pass from hand to hand to the last person who throws water on the fire. Similarly, the Sankirtan devotees get the credit for distributing books, but they couldn't do it without the backup of the temple devotees. Despite his acknowledgement, I felt uncomfortable in Los Angeles. So, an interesting admission. Most devotees were encouraged in many ways to accept the austerity of book distribution and accepted it, even though they may have not had the personal characteristics to go out on the streets and approach people. Still, they accepted that difficulty in order to please Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is coming. One weekend, temple, managed then by Bhakta Das, near the San Francisco Bay in Berkeley, where I had first seen devotees in 1968. A 9-foot-high papier-mâché form of Lord Chaitanya was pulled through the streets. The kirtan, expertly led by Madhudvisa Swami for 8 hours straight, was so ecstatic that I couldn't stop chanting the entire time. Afterwards, I told Bhaktidas I wanted to move to San Francisco, but Manjuwali nixed my idea when I returned to Los Angeles. One day, at the end of our japa time, the devotees chanted a new prayer, Guru Vandana, a Bengali song glorifying the spiritual master. A formal Guru Puja also took place. One devotee offered arti to a picture of Srila Prabhupada on the Vyasasan, while everyone else individually offered flowers to him and then obeisances. Srila Prabhupada had recently requested the devotees in India to begin this Guru Puja, and now it had come to America. This worship of Srila Prabhupada became an important part of my spiritual life. In May, I attended a festival in San Diego, this one wonderfully led by Vishnu Jan Swami. Again, I became inspired to leave Los Angeles, and at a meeting with Jayatirtha Das, the temple president in Los Angeles, and a GBC, I explained bluntly, quote, I don't want to live in Los Angeles anymore because the householders are all in Maya. When I ask ladies to sew or cook for the deities, they refuse, but they're always willing to cook a potluck feast with their friends. I want to move to another. Jayatirtha Prabhu, himself a householder, I never heard this, didn't appreciate my remarks, got angry, and replied just as bluntly, quote, you want to move? All right, move today. right now. I want you out of here by tonight. Well, Hare Krishna. I moved to San Diego, just 100 miles south of Los Angeles. Gunagrahi Das, who had just become the temple president there, invited me. Short one pujari, the temple had plenty of services to cover. The prasadam was so opulent, I felt like I was on a heavenly planet. Unfortunately, after a few weeks, Jayatitha Prabhu sent Chintamani Dasi to fill the pujari post, leaving me without service. Hoping to compose Srila Prabhupada's books once again, I wanted to move back to New York. My mother agreed to send me an airplane ticket, but I needed to collect my taxi fare to the airport. That was a memorable day, going to the San Diego Zoo with a small group led by Mahatma Das, who was such an enthusiastic Sankirtan devotee that his enthusiasm almost rubbed off on me. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So any questions, comments?
When was it 73 or 74 when we landed in the
It doesn't give it, let's back up a bit. It doesn't give so much timeline. Well, she said that she left New Vrindavan after, that was on the 3rd of January, 1974. So already it was 1974. And there was a good few months here. So it was somewhere, did we hear June or July? Sorry. I don't catch any dates here. But it was 1974. It appeared to be toward the middle of the year. Yeah. I don't want to finish the book too quickly. So she mentioned, I mean, it's interesting that she wasn't converted to book distribution, it seems. Though she mentions here that she almost, that his enthusiasm almost rubbed off on me. So there were devotees that were engaged in temple services and pujari work, cooking, sewing, that weren't fully, though there were many of them that still had those services. They would go out in their spare time. They would go out and distribute very enthusiastically. So that was considered to be the ideal, that even if you had other services to perform in your spare time, that you would go out and distribute Prabhupada's books. So that was like the ideal, and of course it still is the ideal. But she mentions herself, she's very straightforward. Of course, she didn't particularly impress the temple president by the way she wanted to go. I asked the ladies to sew or cook for the deities. They refuse, but they're always willing to cook a potluck feast with their friends. I want to move to another temple. Jyotirtha Prabhu, himself a householder, didn't appreciate my remarks, got angry, and replied just as bluntly, "You want to move? All right, move today. Move right now. I want you out of here by tonight." So one should be a little careful how one makes one's presentations. And ultimately, Krishna's in control. I mean, she went to San Diego. It looked like it was a perfect arrangement, but then the post of Pujari was filled, and yeah, so one has to be careful on how one presents things. Yeah. Rupanuga gave me the opportunity after Srila Prabhupada's visit to Atlanta, because his Prabhupada had what's the word? Disbanded the In God We Trust political party. Prabhupada felt politics was too filthy a business, so he didn't want devotees to do that. So I was on his party. There was maybe 8 or 10 of us devotees. We were traveling and collecting funds to pay for these political activities, to get these devotees to run for some representative, or even Balavanta was running for mayor. Damodar was running in Washington, Pancharatna in New York, devotees in Florida, and different other places. So that was stopped. So Rupanuga was kind of downsizing his party. And he told me that I could go to Atlanta, I could stay in Atlanta, become part of the temple there, or I could join Radha Damodar. I could join the Radha Damodar team, or I could go to India. So I chose going to India. So I accompanied him to the festival. He said I really didn't deserve to go, but if I collected the money, I could go. So then I went, and it was blissful festivals in Mayapur and Vrindavan. And then I came back. Even before the festival was finished in Vrindavan, I was on the train with Hiranyagarbha Das and Venkata Das, who were would be the Gurukula teachers. And they both, Venkata became a sannyasi with the Gaudiya Math eventually, and Hiranyagarbha became a disciple of this Tinkori Gosai or something, some other interesting saintly person in India afterwards. This was some time later. So, and I started cleaning the temple, the Lotus building, all the floors, and then they moved me into the kitchen, and then I was put into the Goshala, supervising the cows and bulls there, and actually staying in a little hut, and then walking the kilometer or so to the temple for Mangal Arati. And during the rainy season, it was knee-deep water in the dark, and I chanted very sincere rounds, because you're always thinking some little squiggly thing's gonna latch onto your leg and send you back home or send you to hell. So yeah, and then I got sick. I had colitis, hepatitis, and jaundice. So then They sent me to London. So it wasn't my preferred choice. Especially I mentioned that the day I was leaving Delhi was the day that Prabhupada was coming back. I had wanted to stay in India in order to get Prabhupada's association. And then the whole time I was serving there, Prabhupada was traveling in the West, and the day he was coming back was the day I had to leave. So didn't work out. Didn't work out. So then when I was in London, I ended up in the St. Pancras Tropical Diseases Hospital with jaundice, yellow, and there for a couple of weeks, getting pumped full of flageols, which is what they use to cure colitis and hepatitis. And then I just decided, and then I told myself that wherever Krishna puts you, you stay there. And if he tells you to go somewhere else, he moves you somewhere else, then you stay there till he moves you somewhere else. So I stayed in London, and then they moved me to Ireland. And then I got moved back to England. And then during the whole thing with Jai Tirtha, when he was unfortunately losing his Krishna consciousness, I got sent to South Africa. And here I am. And here I stay, it seems. So Krishna's in control. We can make our own arrangements, but somehow or other they don't always work out according to plan. So the best thing is to just depend on Krishna, depend on the situation and the opportunities that he gives us and appreciate them. Could be worse. Could be worse. Hare Krishna. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Shri Nitai Madhava Chandra ki. Nitai Gaur. Haribol. Did end up killing a cobra there too.